Barry Sherman and his wife Honey have been found dead in their York Mills mansion.
Death by strangulation, no sign of forced entry. At first, Toronto police said they weren't looking for any suspects in the death of Barry and Honey Sherman, leading some to conclude it was a murder-suicide.
Means that we're investigating to determine if there's foul play involved or not. And at this point, we cannot with 100% certainty say that there is or is not.
But the Sherman family disputed that right away, hiring their own investigators to find out who killed the billionaire couple.
I don't think very many people believed in the rumor that was never substantiated, but of murder-suicide.
And now police agree both were murdered.
We have sufficient evidence to describe this as a double homicide investigation.
But no one has been charged. While police and private investigators look for clues, the Fifth Estate has also been investigating. Reporter Bob McEwen and producer Harvey Cashore aired their story Friday night.
So, Bob, let's start with what's happening in your midst as you're working on this story. You have an active police investigation, you have a fairly fulsome private investigation, and every other media outlet following this story. How does that influence the way you work?
Yeah, well, it makes it obviously much more difficult. The stakes are really high in a murder, especially a murder such as this one, which is involving two incredibly wealthy and prominent people. It's a problem we face all the time, and it's one of the reasons, Diana, that we rarely do a murder story that is before the trial, that is before there's a verdict, before someone's been declared the murderer. Almost everyone we do. The Olin family last year, Tim Bosma, Laura Babcock, is after the fact. So this one is A, before the fact, and B, encumbered by all the extra characters you just described.
And so in the course of doing your investigation, Harvey, you interview someone.
Right.
As you're both there, you're sitting across from this fella. He says something extraordinary. So take me through that.
That's right. We were looking for, who might have done this, committed this murder, but also what were the relationships that they had. And we have a family dispute that goes back 20 years, and it's the Winters versus the Shermans. And on camera, we have one of the people that lost this lawsuit very recently, very angry, very upset, and making an astonishing allegation that when he makes it, we don't know if it's true. And it's inflammatory, he's angry, and what do we do with that?
And what did he say?
He said that 20 years ago, Barry Sherman asked him to help arrange a hit on his wife, Honey Sherman. And even just saying that to you right now causes me pause, because it's an allegation that's a horrific one to make.
But originally when he made it, the operative theory of the Toronto Police Service seemed to be murder-suicide. So that would fit what it was he was telling us.
So what do you do with that? You get this incendiary piece of information. Journalistically, what's the next move?
Well, you've got to test it, obviously. One, in terms of its veracity. How do you figure out if what he's telling you is true? So we go back into the history of the family and the legalities that would have triggered this in the first place. Two, legally, what can we say? Now, in this case, Barry and Honey Sherman are dead, deceased, unfortunately. They can't sue us for slander or libel, but there is a very, very active and involved family unit there that is very influential. So we want to make sure that we're on the right side of the law in terms of libel and slander. And the last thing is the ethic of it, the fairness.
Because you're putting out something that could be really hurtful for this family to hear, painful for them to hear.
This is a family that lost their mother and father. They're billionaires, they're philanthropists, they're well-known in their community, but this is a family that lost their parents. And so here we are, journalists, looking at, who did it, who are the suspects, and that kind of thing. But on top of that, how will the material we're presenting make the family feel? We worry about that. We're concerned about that very
Do you think that's going to surprise some people, though, who think that journalists don't worry about that?
Well, we saw the Daily Mail. They came out with a story with very similar information that we wouldn't have reported that way. Because of that, we spoke to other experts. We spoke to sources, did the story check out, and what we discovered was there was holes in that story. And the story that you saw last night on the Fifth Estate is far different than the story in the Daily Mail.
Well, for one thing, we suggested he take a lie detector test, which he did, and he failed. So rather than taking this at face value, we wanted to go as far as we could to prove or disprove what it was he was telling us.
And final question, when you hear something in a course of investigating, as you say, an active investigation, which is not normally the course of things, you get something like this. Do you have a duty to tell police?
I think under some circumstances you would, if there were a danger to the public, something of that sort. But I think common sense rules. If you think, we can't hold on to this, we've got to let them know, then you let them know. On the other hand, it's not our job to do the police investigation. If we're onto something they're not, they will learn about it eventually, soon enough.
And it's not something you know to be true either. It's not as though you have a definitive smoking gun.
And we have our confidential sources who help us get to a story. We're not going to reveal them. But if there's a present danger, if someone's going to be potentially in danger, of course we tell the police, and right away.
Thanks to you both for talking about it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.